I will show you how to go from this to this if you watch this video to the end. Hi guys, welcome back to another tutorial. Today, we'll be learning how to make structured capes, so let's get straight into it. This is the pattern I'll be using for my cape. You can cut yours into whatever length or size you choose. I'm also making use of a crepe fabric. I'll be making 2 capes for each hand, so I'll go ahead and fold my fabric into 4 so I can cut everything at once. I'm cutting 4 because we need 2 for each side. One is the main fabric while the other is for turning it. I'll add half-inch sewing allowance all around my pattern, and then I'll go ahead to cut it out. I'll be adding cotton stay interfacing to my fabric. I'll cut out 4 pieces of this also, 1 for each piece of the fabric. For the structure, I'll be making use of crinoline mesh and wedge-link boning. For the wedge-link boning, I'll be using the smallest size, which is about 0.25 inches. I'll set the boning aside for now while I cut out the crinoline mesh. I have 4 pieces of this cut out. I'll be using 2 for each side to make it firmer. If you observe carefully, you will notice that the crinoline mesh is smaller than the fabric. So after cutting your crinoline mesh, go ahead and reduce it by 0.75 inches on all sides. I'll be going over to the sewing machine to do the rest of the work. I've already pressed on my interfacing to my fabric. I'll go ahead to join both sides together, sewing down on half-inch allowance. I'll trim off the excess allowance to reduce the bulk. I left the side open and I'll be turning it over to the right side through this opening. I'll go ahead to give this a good press. Next, I'll run the loose stitch to join both pieces of the crinoline mesh together. Here I'm just trimming out all the unequal edges. The crinoline mesh has rough edges which are quite uncomfortable and may poke out through the fabric. To tackle this issue, we'll be sealing off the edges of the crinoline mesh with our cotton bias. This takes away the roughness of the edges. I'll go ahead to sew the bias around the edges of the mesh. I'm done sewing it all around. The next thing I'll be doing is to sew my boning on it. I'll start with the vertical lines. I'll be sewing from one edge of the mesh down to the other edge. I sewed down on the outer edge of the boning only. I left the inner edge open and you'll find out the reason soon. I'll be sewing down more boning lines until we get to the other end. For these other boning lines, I'll be sewing down on both sides. There is no specific measurement for this distance, so just space it evenly all along. I'm done sewing all the vertical bonings, and as you can see, I left the inner edge of this one open also. The next thing I'll do is to sew down the horizontal bonings. Now here's the reason why we left that part open. We'll be inserting the edge of the horizontal boning into it like this, and then we'll go ahead to sew it down until we get to the other end, where we'll also insert it into the other part. I have 3 boning lines sewn because of the width of my cape. So if yours is wider, you may have to sew more lines of boning. Now that I'm done sewing down all the horizontal bonings, I'll be closing the open space we left on this other part. Now our structure is ready. You can see how firm it is. What I'll be doing next is to insert this into my fabric. I've already pressed my fabric as you can see and it's looking all smooth and neat. I'll be inserting it through the opening we left earlier. This is the main reason for that opening. Because of the bias taping at the edge of the crinoline mesh, I'm able to insert this easily. If I didn't conceal the rough edges, it would have been very difficult inserting it, as the rough edges of the crinoline mesh will be sticking to the interfacing and the fabric. I'll push it all the way in, making sure that my fabric is lying flat and neat against it. The next thing I'll be doing is to seal off this open edge. I'll be folding it by ½ inch inwards this way, and I'll secure it with pins just so it stays in place. I'll be closing up this opening using the invisible stitch technique. If you don't know how to do the invisible stitch technique, congratulations, you stayed up till this point, because I'll be teaching you how to do that next, so keep watching. I have my hand needle and thread ready. The invisible stitch technique is one in which the stitch lines will not be visible on the fabric. So basically, we're passing our needle inside the fabric. I'll start by making a knot at one edge. And I'll pass my needle over to the other side. You know, it's two sides we're trying to bring together to close up the opening. I'm passing my needle underneath the fabric and bringing it out. This is on one side of the fabric. And then I'll cross my needle over to the other side of the fabric and I'll pass it underneath and bring it out. So basically, we're going in a zigzag manner. I've zoomed in so you can have a better view of what I am doing. I'll keep going in a crisscross manner, pulling the thread so the fabric comes together. I'll do this till I get to the other end, so just watch carefully to see what I am doing. When I get to the end, I'll make a knot and cut off my thread. Then I'll tie the end to secure it. And that's how you make a well-structured sleeve that will stand firm and not fall. You can see the before look and how it is. And this is it with the structure inside. You can see how firm and solid it is. This cape will not fall no matter the embellishment you put on it. You can also see how neat and smooth the surface is looking, unlike other methods that will have the surface looking rough. To attach your structure to your outfit, you will make use of a needle and thread to tack it from behind. Tack it down at different points so it stays firm. We have come to the end of this tutorial, and if you watched up to this point, I hope you've learned something new. Let me know if you'll be trying out this technique in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to my channel if you love sewing like I do. I'll be uploading a new tutorial soon, so make sure to turn on your notifications so you'll be the first to know when I post that video. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Bye!